Welcome back to the channel. Look at what we have here today, folks. The big news is not stopping as of now. This article is titled Morocco's Central Bank Explores Digital Currency for Cross-Border Payments. This is good. This is real good. Now, if you've been watching the videos, you'll remember recently I told people to look into, what did I tell them to look into? QNB Bank, but put that to the side. Put that one to the side. And I told them to look into Attajari Wafa Bank. Why did I tell them to look into Attajari Wafa Bank? And I said, hey, and I said, look into its subsidiaries. Because Attajari Wafa Bank is one of the banks we covered that Ripple was working with years ago. And they were satisfied. What's that? What what does that have to do with Morocco's central bank? Oh, wait. Look at this. Let me just jump over here. This is an older article. Go look all of this up. Check all of this. It's all happening for a reason. Can you see it? This old article is titled, as a reference, Ripple enters Morocco through Attajari Wafa's new partnership deal. This is just merely one way that they've entered Morocco. One. But it's a very powerful one. Ripple extends RippleNet services into Morocco via Attajari Wafa's new partnership deal. And it was a partnership deal with, I believe, Thunes. But let me go down here. Oh, it is. Ripple is expanding into Morocco as Thunes, a global cross-border payments company. This is via Thunes. A global cross-border payments company has formed a strategic collaboration with Attajari Wafa Bank, one of the biggest banks in Morocco and Africa. Like I said, look into this, guys, folks, so you can have the information yourself. You can see it for yourself. Then they have a little tweet here from Thunes at Thunes Payment. It says one of the largest banks in Morocco and Africa, Attajari Wafa. This partnership enables seamless bank-to-bank. Let me ask you a question. It's been a long time since we went over the financials. We went over the financials of QNB and Attajari Wafa. So we need to get an update on how much value they're moving. But just put a number in your head how much value you think a massive bank like Attajari Wafa is moving. And then when you see this bank-to-bank payments, how many banks do they deal with? How many banks do they deal with? How much value are they moving? And keep in mind, this is just merely one aspect of XRP possibly dominating in the MENA region. It continues on. Bank-to-bank payments to all bank accounts in Morocco. A huge improvement for customers that need to make regular X-border payments. Let's just be real. It's a huge improvement for anybody that's holding XRP. All of these, we're finding out all this information about banks and companies wanting XRP treasuries, which I told you, question that. Question those XRP treasuries because they can use all this XRP they're accumulating to utilize XRP outside of the Ripple system. They can build their own systems. They can go at it alone if they want. I don't care which way it goes, to be honest. As long as they have that XRP and drive that price up using it for interbank payments, RWA, whatever they want, payroll. And it looks like it's happening. But let's go back to the original article. I just wanted to show you proof. So now you have proof. This is the connection. You see how as soon as I saw that, I said, Morocco, wait a minute. I went right to the research. Ripple Morocco. They're not the only ones I researched either, but I knew I remembered. Let's go back to this original article, okay? I know you're excited. These are great moments we're living through. So now, this one begins here. My apologies. Morocco's central bank was exploring the use of its own digital currency for peer-to-peer and cross-border payments. This is coming from bank governor. Their bank governor, this individual made this statement on Monday. My apologies. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name because I know I'm going to mangle it. All right. That's why I paused. A central bank digital currency is controlled by a central bank. We know that. We don't need to preach to the choir. The bank has been working with the IMF and the World Bank to assess the payment system's impacts of its CBDC. The person in charge, Joe Ree, told a conference in Rabat. So I guess if there was a conference, you probably could pull up a transcript and get a little bit more information, which I'm sure now that people are going to be learning about this, they'll probably do that. And that's a smart thing to do if you want more details on this. But look at this. They mentioned the IMF, they mentioned the World Bank, both of which are on their knees crawling to the bank coin companies. We know the IMF has worked with Ripple. Come on. You think that stopped? Why would it? They're losing power rapidly. But okay, World Bank, we know that also. And it's not just with Ripple. I should really say the bank coin companies as a whole. That's what I mean. But I always think XRP and Ripple because they've done the most and they're at the forefront. But let's continue on. The Moroccan Central Bank, together with its Egyptian peer and the World Bank, was also exploring the use of the CBDC for cross-border transfers. He said, now, why in all of this? And this is what I originally wanted to say. Why in all of this did they not mention Ripple or DLT at all? Why? Why does there seem to be this big cover-up, if I can use that phrase, that the professionals of who we read the information from a few videos back, they literally said, who was it? It was the entity that monitors banks, that company, Serious Business. And they were talking about cover-ups. Yes. Why are they covering this stuff up? You got to ask yourself that question. Why don't they want the people to know that this technology has a connection to all of these powerful banks? The first logical thing that comes to mind is because that technology is tied to something like native tokens, XRP, Algorand, XLM, whatever. They're tied to these native tokens from which the people would be able to profit. The companies want the profit themselves. So they engage in these types of covert, if you will, activities. So the people aren't too bullish. You and I are a small group. Oh, there's hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of XRP enthusiasts out of 8 billion people on Earth. They don't care. It's a raindrop in an ocean. We're not a big group. They don't want the rest of the world knowing this information. Because I believe this. You don't have to agree with this. You don't have to believe this. I speak for myself. I feel as though they plan to run those prices up over the next year and a half, right? I could be wrong. You could say that. I don't believe I am. Not 1 second do I believe I'm wrong. I don't. But I'm trying to be fair. Over the next year and a half, we've already seen multitude of companies, one, accumulating XRP and XRP reserves, just like Solana and Solana reserves. As well as a lot of these bank coin companies, including Ripple, trying to become banks. Watch how many more companies. If there's an exponential rise in companies collecting XRP for XRP reserves over the next year and a half, it tells you everything you need to know. Then the next step, in my humble opinion, is watching how they move that XRP. If they don't majorly move that XRP, that means they're looking for that price to explode way beyond what it is right now. Now, I may sound a little exasperated. That's just because I'm excited. I'm excited. These are good. These are exciting times for a researcher. But think about that. If they don't move major XRP, they obviously want that price to skyrocket. How else are they going to do that? Is it going to do it on its own? Probably, you can say out of utility, but they affect utility. They are the users. Do they wait on that? Or do they make some phone calls to their media friends and make it pump? Knowing how easy it is to pump something. They have the ultimate power of bump. Once again, I want to promote observation, seeing for yourself, reading information for yourself, observing over time. Your own eyes, your own mind is going to tell you where everything is going better than anybody could. Watch. I mean, you don't have to do anything. I'm not saying you have to. This is how I think. This is my opinion. Watch. And you're going to see. It's going to tell itself. They're going to tell on themselves. Why was this connection? This connection, all these articles written by, this is from the Morocco articles from Yahoo. You think Yahoo their researchers are just So terrible. They don't know about any type of Ripple activity with Attajari Wafa or any of these banks. And like I said, Attajari Wafa is merely one aspect, one variable, one angle. That whole MENA region is heating up. You have activities in Saudi Arabia. You have activities everywhere. Now you have this activity, Morocco. They all want to be the DLT hub. You got RWA now being built, things being built for RWA. What was it? Was it in Dubai on the XRPL? And yet a day later, that type of huge news is buried. They don't even talk about it. Why? Something so potent. Why? I question things like that. Always ask the why. Don't let anybody quiet you down either. You're always asking questions. And that's why we're always moving forward, making progress. You have to have the why, then we can figure everything else out. There's a wall in front of you. You ask, why? What is this wall for? What purpose does it serve? Who put it here? What's it made out of? Then we're figuring it out. The more we figure the wall out, the easier it is to conquer the wall. I'm just saying, folks. I'm just saying. All right, so you have that. Let's move on to this. You thought that was it? This is a wonderful, wonderful day and age because every single day there's massive information coming out. Today is no different. One day it's going to slow down. Change is the only constant. We've been through droughts like that before where it's very difficult to come by powerful information. This is not that time, folks. Strap in. This article is titled, Bessent Calls for Deeper U.S. Bank Regulatory Reforms, Scrapping Dual Capital Requirements. Why? Why this year? Why is this happening now? At the same time, banks are ready to be absorbed into the new financial system. At the same time, that bank coin companies want to become banks. They're just loosening everything up. No one's asking the why. Scroll down here and find out a little bit more information. They're getting ready, in my humble opinion. They have to loosen things up so that when it's time for them to utilize all this technology that gives them global reach, extra liquidity, cushions, lowers costs, allows them to lend in ways they never could lend before, allows them to stake. They call that all those delicious gains. They have to be free to do that at the max for this to matter, for it to have been worth the headache of shirking the old system. They're getting ready. They are preparing. You're witnessing with your own eyes. That's always a funny phrase, with your own eyes. Who else's eyes is going to be? But you are bearing witness to the preparatory steps. It says this, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Monday called for deeper reforms of what he called an antiquated financial regulatory system and said regulators should consider scrapping a flawed, quote unquote, proposal for a dual capital requirement structure for banks. How much easier do they want to make it for them? Why are they doing this right now? Can you tell me? Speaking at the start of a Federal Reserve regulatory conference, which hopefully there's a transcript and you can go read it if you desire such, Bessent said excessive capitalization requirements were imposing unnecessary burdens on financial institutions. Really? The same ones that are struggling for liquidity, begging for money to be printed, which is fake and it's just being printed out of nowhere. It's not backed by anything, thus creating a bubble that later they're going to come in and have to remove that capital anyway so that it doesn't cause maximum damage. That's literally why these rules were instituted, from my understanding. If you understand differently, more power to you, as they used to say, right? But the only reason I could think of that they wouldn't need this, which means that they wouldn't have, see, capital requirements, you have to hold a certain amount of value or something like that, I would believe. It's because now you can use The crypto, the native tokens that nobody knows that they're going to be using. They don't know. No one knows that. Just you and I would know it, but most of the world won't know that. And they can just liquidate those treasuries anytime they want. You think that only companies are going to have these native token treasuries? Why would the banks let the companies have all the fun? The banks literally been saying for years, when it's time to deal with crypto, you can come to us. I'm trying to convince the customers. They got quiet for a while, but they were saying that at one time. Do you think they're going to back away from that, even though they released documents about staking? That was towards the end of last year or the beginning of this year. Around that time, we read that document. They want to play. They want to play. They're not leaving that off the table. But that's the only reason I could think of why you would not need this. You don't need those requirements because you could play with a little bit more of what you have, which is false value, but value nonetheless they're going to use. Because anytime you want now, you could tap into XRP liquidity. You could tap into XLM liquidity. You can sell your Solana treasury. Sell some Solana and you could fill the gap anytime they want now. This is why one of the reasons I do believe, just one, there's many, why those prices are going to go sky high. They can tap into that liquidity anytime they want. They're going to have a field day soon. It's time, their time to play. That's how they feel. But let's continue on here. So it says, imposing unnecessary burdens on financial institutions by holding them accountable and trying to make things safer. Question everything. Reducing lending, hurting growth, and distorting markets by driving lending to the non-bank sector. They just exposed themselves right there with that. It told you everything you need to know. They can't compete with non-banking financial institutions. They've released multiple documents. I'm very serious. We've read it over the years where they're complaining, about the non-banking financial institutions stepping on them because they can't compete. They can't compete with the yield that they offer. They can't compete with all the different dynamic ways they can operate. So they've been looking for a way to get back even with or maybe exceed their main competitors, NBFIs, non-banking financial institutions, and crypto, the native tokens, XRP, and all of these bank coins. That's their way to do it. Think about it. Non-banking financial institution offers a money market fund, delicious yield, or a cash sweep account or something like that. Right? Delicious yield on a cash sweep account. Divide your money up into a multitude of different accounts like that, but they collect all the stuff and give you a nice yield off of that. If that indeed is how it still works. And now the banks can offer staking to their customers who don't know anything about staking. Now the banks can offer lending. Oh, let us hold your crypto. Did you know you can lend your crypto out? We'll help you with that. You want to do that? We'll help you with that. They'll take a good percentage off of that, give the customer percentage. Customer doesn't know that the actual yield was much higher. They don't know that, but it doesn't matter because to them, that's great yield because their savings accounts and other things they've dealt with, the yield is terrible. It's terrible. They're going to be happy, no disrespect, but they're going to be happy getting tossed a bone. If you haven't had steak before, that bone that the steak came from might taste pretty good. To put it in a more visual way. So now let's scroll down here, see if they have any more information on this. It says, quote, "We need deeper reforms rooted in a long-term blueprint for innovation." Really? You just told on yourself, sir. What type of innovation right now, folks? I'm asking you. What type of innovation is taking over the banking industry? Not even the banking industry, the financial industry as a whole. When they say innovation, mostly now, when in corroboration, if I'm using that word correctly, in connection with the financial system, what are they talking about mostly? Mostly they're talking about DLT technology. That's all the rage right now. That's where they're all trying to integrate with. And he's telling you right here, we need reforms rooted in long-term blueprint for innovation. Right. That sounds like the same verbiage that's used when they're coming up with all these new pro crypto rules. At the same time he's saying this, they're telling you what's coming. It says financial stability and resilient growth. What innovation right now is going to allow them to have resilient growth? DLT technology. Come on. They tell you stuff without saying too much. They say a lot with saying a little. Make sense? So, I mean, all this stuff coming out here, please, get a chance. Read these articles yourself, okay? And they're eye openers for sure, in my humble opinion. So now let's go here. Oh, look at this. I have no idea how long this video is now. I want to squeeze this in before we get to a little bit of Bitcoin news. I have other articles I will post in the members only section. All right, potent ones. Now, this article is titled XRP Ledger sees 2,260% surge in tokenized RWAs driven by growing institutional demand. If this is happening now, what will happen in a year or two when everything is in the favor of the Bitcoin companies? Everything's not in favor of the Bitcoin companies right now. We're just getting set up. We're still reading about regulation. We're still reading about debates between the politicians about what they're going to do and how they're looking at things, and institutions still trying to buy and build crypto reserves. Everything's in the process of being built right now. So if it's doing this well now, what's going to happen when everything is up and running, set up, is ready to really pop off? You know what I mean? When it's matured. I'll leave that one there. Now, this article was titled Genius Group Cites Genius Act as it boosts Bitcoin stash to 200 BTC. Singapore-based AI edtech firm Genius Group doubled its Bitcoin holdings to 200 BTC in July, while expanding its crypto initiatives under newly passed Genius Act. Why? Didn't we just hear about someone else the other day bought a ton of Bitcoin? Now this, they're all loading up. But wait a minute. I've been seeing a lot of articles saying, oh, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin bull run is just going to be paused. It might be over. Are you sure about that, article writers? I mean, hey, everyone has their opinion. You don't have to agree with me. I don't have to agree with you. That's perfectly fine. But just like you question me, I'm going to question you. Are you sure about that? None of the positive catalysts, have been negated. They've only increased, and we've been learning increasingly about more positive catalysts, more companies, more things happening with Bitcoin. We even have companies coming out saying, don't even worry about quantum computing. We're handling it. We're working on it right now. Don't even worry about it. Positive. Bitcoin remains super bullish despite anything else that's happening. Oh, other coins explode. Bitcoin remains super bullish unless there is a massively negative catalyst that can actually negate the power of everything else that's going on. Even if you have a correction or dip, in my humble opinion, it'll be right back. The resilience is that strong because the resilience and the potency is being led by companies who do not play around. They have a long-term plan. They're not here for short-term. They may make short-term chess moves. If you're just looking at their pawn moving, you're going to only see what the pawn is doing, but you're not looking at the entirety of the plan. You have to look at all the pieces on the chessboard together. Singapore-based artificial-driven edtech firm Genius Group added 20 BTC to its Bitcoin treasury last week as part of its long-term strategy to build a 10,000 BTC treasury reserve, doubling it in a month. Do you think they're doing that to make some pennies? No, they plan to make a ton of value from Bitcoin. They see the potentiality there. According to a Tuesday announcement, Genius Group acquired 20 Bitcoin, which Bitcoin right now is showing green at $119,768 at the time of this video, when it's released, at the time of this article, and when I'm filming this video. Later on, hours later, once I release this video, the price will probably be different. Crypto's volatile like that. Make sure you look up the price for yourself. It says on Friday, boosting its total holdings to 200 BTC. Bitcoin traded between 117K and 120K on the day, according to Nansen data. All right, things are looking good for Bitcoin. Companies are still acquiring it. That's a very, very good thing. I try not to worry about retail too much. Retail is back and forth, back and forth. They're going to do what they do, but that volatility that retail brings, I don't think is going to be felt. It's not felt as much as it used to be, or as you see Bitcoin's price much lower. That's one thing. Another is that's going to continue to be minimized into the future as more and more companies take over. They're going to stabilize that price at a much, much higher place, in my humble opinion. So now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, everybody, let's get to the money.